Jack? Where's Jack? Where is he? Jack, I want to see you. Great job, Jack. Thank you. What a job you do. You know, we have an incredible thing. We're always talking about the fake news and the bad, but we have guys, and these are the guys who should be getting Pulitzers.
Jack Posobiec, we're back here. We're live on Human Events Daily. We're talking about this horrific attack on a church in Minneapolis, Minnesota, the same Minneapolis, Minnesota, where the George Floyd incident took place, where BLM was sparked. The spark of 2020 began in this same city, just a few miles from where this church now stands, and was attacked. Something on the streets there in Minneapolis, apparently. But we're on with Evita Duffy. And Evita, I wanted to, as we're going through this, we've talked so much about these patterns that sort of echo throughout history, and that we would never see, whenever we see these upheavals, whenever we see these revolutions, these communistic far left movements, it always seems that churches and schools and Christians, just Christians in general, are the targets. And we see once again that ties to the manifesto here of this direct obsession with the killing of Christians, and specifically Christian children, God's most precious, visible, the visages of God, be like children, as Jesus said. Why is it that they always target Christians?
Well, it's a good question, Jack. I mean, we've talked a lot about the Spanish Civil War on this show, and the way that the communists just straight up, the first targets happened to be nuns and priests and monks and bishops, and the people in religious life. They take a vow of poverty. That these are not rich individuals who are hoarding all the wealth of the masses. So why do the communists hate the Christians? It's a kind of perplexing thing until you recognize the spiritual elements of leftism, and the way that truly they hate the faith, they hate the church, because like you articulated in the last segment, Jack, Christians, especially Catholics, I think, are able to stand up to the state because their identity is in a higher power. Their community is among fellow Christians. And it's really hard to indoctrinate and to fully, I think, control an individual who is a faithful Christian. This is why I think in 2020 you saw all of the race Marxists attack churches. Why are we attacking churches? Why are we burning and vandalizing Catholic churches? Well, this is the answer. It's the same movement. It's the same ideology that feels the most threatened by traditional Christians, not because they are a threat to society, or they're hoarding all the wealth in society, or whatever excuse you want to make. No, it's that they are faithful, they are God-fearing. They're the only thing that could stand up to communism and to radical leftism, and frankly, to demons.
You need that original, and what is the church, right? The church is the unbroken line of tradition that has stood for 2,000 years as a direct connection between the earth and heaven. And so in order to throw off the shackles of the old order, as every communist says, what must you do? Well, you have to throw off or destroy and target the bedrock of that, which is, of course, the Catholic Church, which is, of course, Christianity, which is, of course, the direct connection to heaven that exists through prayer. All of these things are true, and if they weren't true, then they wouldn't have existed in every single one of these times, whether it's Orthodox Christians in Russia, whether it's Catholics in Spain and France, or whether it's Christians here in America going on again and again. We see this pattern echo throughout time. And in fact, one of the pieces, and there's so many more pieces that are coming out now, information saying, so here's, former classmate says the suspect showed red flags in grade school. Said that she was a former classmate of Westman while they were both in grade school in St. Paul. Told an affiliate that the shooter had few friends and very odd obsessions, things that she would now categorize as red flags. I knew that something was off, but I was a kid. How was I to know what to do? We also saw that the suspect had worked earlier this year at a cannabis dispensary, a weed dispensary, and was actually reprimanded there. And again, you know, a lot of behavioral issues that people were talking about. To me as well, the fact that he brings up in his manifesto the split up of his parents, and he's talking about all these interfamily, you know, kind of issues that are going on. The mother, again, we see that she's now down in Florida, and so this has become an issue where the police are trying to figure out what's going on. And you know, we don't really talk about how all of these pieces together, when you look at the, you know, the use of recreational marijuana, a high THC content, which has been linked to a lot of negative disorders, and it's like, sorry guys, it's just true. It's just true. Then the breakup of the family at a young age, and you know, and then of course you're online and you're dealing with all these gender issues at the same time. It really turns itself into a very disordered situation.
I mean, it's just the obsession with the gun. That's the only thing that ever matters. And you're right, Jack, there's a pattern. A lot of these individuals who have committed mass shootings in recent years,
From the
they
media.
are on drugs long term, and we're not allowed to talk about what they are. We're not allowed to look at the patterns. We aren't allowed to talk about the context in any way whatsoever. I also
Oh,
think that,
and
yeah.
but whether, not to be remiss, but I should also mention, and we talked about this yesterday at great length, the SSRIs and potential other pharmaceutical soup of pharmaceuticals this guy was on.
Well, and are we going to get that information? I mean, this is the other thing, Jack. Like, are we going to know everything about this individual? I'm not sure. I mean, I think it's going to be up to people who knew him, people who are going to do investigating on their own on the internet, because for some reason, authorities never, especially in Minneapolis, I'm going to suspect, are not going to want to give us the full picture here. It's what happened in Nashville, because this isn't a convenient story for the political left. This is an individual who is transgender, who has a hatred for Christians and President Trump. They're never going to give us all the information, let alone are they going to investigate this as a hate crime, which it very clearly was. The same thing happened in Nashville, where you have somebody explicitly articulating a hatred of children, a hatred of Trump, or a hatred of Christian children. And we aren't allowed to talk about it in that context. We're not allowed to investigate it in that way, because this individual is part of a protected class in the left, among the left. And so there will be no investigation. We are probably not going to get the information that we deserve on him unless people in the community go out and get it themselves.
Yeah, and you see this again and again, but that the root of this pathology is, it's always resentment, it's always hatred, it's always a sort of envy, right? So this anger that, when, you know, this idea, so okay, I was on a good track when I was this age, when I was at that school, and therefore you project that onto others and say, well, if I had a bad outcome and you are on good outcomes, then I have to destroy you. So I have to destroy you because of what happened to me, which is my own fault, but it doesn't matter, so I have to destroy you. This is actually how pretty much all of communism and communist philosophy and communist, well, psychology works. So a lot of people talk about communist philosophy. I like talking more about communist psychology, where they just hate. They hate people who are more successful than them, that are more well-ordered than them, that are having better outcomes than them. Yeah, in many cases this involves trauma, but in many cases it doesn't either. It's just this breeded resentment that exists. And so what do? They lash out and take it out on others rather than actually trying to do something to better their own lot in life.
Well, and I think who he took it out on is so important as well, Jack. I mean, the people that he should be mad at are the ones around him who affirmed his delusions. We know his mother, probably other people as well. And he took it out on little Christian children. And for the last 100 years, arguably more, the left has tried to smear Christians, going back to the founding of our country, saying that we were founded on racism. The Pilgrims, the Puritans who came here were racist individuals. The Spaniards who tried to convert the Aztecs were also somehow racist, called the Black Legend. The way that in 2020 they attacked churches, even in more recently in Canada, the way that they tried to say that the Catholic schools were mass murdering Indigenous children, and then it turned out to be a hoax. They've been lying about Christians, smearing Christians, specifically Catholics, for a very long time, so that when somebody has some resentment and they're angry about themselves and their life, they don't blame the left, which are the people who confirmed the delusions that broke this person's brain. Instead, they blame Christians because Christians are the ones who have been smeared incessantly forever, right? For the last, I mean, specifically in the last 100 years, but for a very long time. And of course, Christians are just people who believe in the way of the Bible, the teachings of Christ, which are not a threat to anyone, which in fact make the world a much better place. And so I think it's very interesting who he turned his fire at.
Evita Duffy, where can people go to follow you, get access to everything you're doing?
Thanks, Jack. My X and my Instagram are Evita Duffy _1.
All right, Evita Duffy _1. Evita, I hear your dad's going to be having you actually in there building the new ceiling for Union Station. You're going to be up there on the ladders doing the polishing, the bright work.
I don't know about the polishing, but I will definitely be there for when it's all completed.
I will meet you there. It's my favorite building in all of Washington, D.C. Right back.